How you guys doing? Welcome to day 2 of Honors Precalculus. So today's lecture we're going to be talking about completed square and quadratic formula. So in order for this lecture to be most effective is try to do the problems on yourself first. This feels like I'm not going too fast. Also, if you do feel like it feels like it's going too fast, you can pause the video at any time. So let's do that. So we're gonna complete the square. Today we're gonna start completing the square. So what we're gonna do first is prove the quadratic formula using completing a square. So let's do that. So which one should we use? We have this formula: ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So we're gonna prove that quadratic formula completing the square. So what are we gonna do is what? Subtract c to both sides. And then now what? I factor out a here. This is x squared plus b over a x. Then when I complete the square, I take half of this and I square it. I get b squared over 4a negative c. So 4a squared, right? Careful on that. So I have to, since I added b squared over 4a squared, right? I got to do the same thing to the other side, but be careful, I didn't really add 4a squared. I added b squared over 4a squared times a. So I really didn't add 4a squared, I just added 4a. So now, this is now a perfect square. This is x plus b over 2a squared is equal to, now I can combine like terms. This is going to be minus 4ac plus b squared all over 4a, right? Now what? I can divide by a to both sides. You got x plus b over 2 squared. You get, and I can switch this around. So this is b squared over 4ac all over 4a squared, right? Now what can I do? Take the square root of both sides. I get b over 2a. And then when I take the square root of the top, I get, also it's plus or minus. When you take the square root, the b square root of b squared minus 4ac. Let's take a square root of the bottom. Square root of 4 is just 2. And then this, as long as a is not negative, this will be 2a, right? There you go. Now what? We have this. Combining, we just got to combine like terms. We got negative b over 2a plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. As you notice, it's the same thing. So I'm going to write it on this side. So I'm just going to combine them. This is going to be negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There you go. We just proved the quadratic formula right there using completing the square. Okay. So I want you guys to try to pause the video for this and try to learn it really well. Once you do know how to complete the square, prove the quadratic formula by completing the square, you really know how to complete the square. You can pretty much complete the square with any problem. Any problem. With no problem. How about that? Okay, so let's do some problems by completing the square. So we're going to start with completing the square first. A over 3 over 16 x squared plus 3 over 8 x equals 3 over 2. So what can I do? I'm completing the square. I got to factor out the 3 over 16, right? This x squared, what's here? It's just 2x. Now when I complete the square, what I take half of this and then square, I get 1. 3 over 2. I didn't really add 1, I added 3 over 16, so I got to add 3 over 16 to both sides. So this is now what? This is a perfect square, right? And this one, this is going to be to multiply 8 times 8. So I get what? 24 on the top over 16. So 24 plus 3 is 27 over 16. Then you get x plus 1 squared. Then dividing by 16 over 3, what do you get? You get 9, right? So then you have x plus 1 squared is equal to 9. Why did I write it twice? I have no idea. So what we can do is take the square root of both sides, right? So you get x plus 1 is equal to plus or minus 3. And then subtracting 1 to both sides, get plus or minus 3. supposed to be at 3. And then you have negative 1 plus 3. It's going to be negative 2. Oh, not negative 2, just 2. And x equals negative 1 minus 3, you get negative 4. There you go. That's your answer. Okay. Okay, moving on to B. X squared plus 1, 9 equals 5, 6x. So what should I do here first when I'm trying to complete the square? I gotta move 5, 6 to the other side. So this is minus 5, 6x. Then I should subtract 1, 9. Right now I gotta complete the square here. X squared minus 5, 6 x. This is just what, half of this, and you square it. What do you get? That's gonna be what, 25 over 144. And I gotta do the same thing to the other side. I gotta add 25 over 144. Now this is a perfect square, right? X minus 5 over what? 5 over 12 square is equal to what? This is gonna be going to 144 16 times. So this is negative 16 over plus 25 over 144, right? So now I just take the square root of both sides. So this is really 9 over 144. So when I take the square root of that, I get 3 over 12. I can simplify, but you notice they have the same common denominator, so I'm just going to add 5, 12 to the other side. When I do that, I get 8 over 12, which is 2 over 3. And then when I do the minus 1, I get 5 minus 3, which is 2 over 12, which is 1 over 6. There you go. All right. So we just completed the square. How was that? A bit too fast. Now we're gonna do quadratic formula. Quadratic equation. We have a quadratic equation. I shouldn't say quadratic equation. Solving by factoring. How about that? So we're going to use the quadratic equation by factoring. So we're going to do quadratic by factoring. So factoring by factoring. All right. So solving quadratic equation by factoring. So we're going to do that. Plus 3/8 x equals 3 halves. So here, if I want to factor, I should try to get the same LCD, right? So in this case it's 16, so multiply everything by 16, both sides, so you get times 2 here, you get 6x times 8 here, this is 24. So you notice, look at that, they're all divisible by 3, so what can I do? I can divide by 3, I have x squared plus 2x, and if I move it to the other side, I get negative 8. This one factors easily, so you have x plus 4, x minus 2, equals 0, x equals negative 4, x equals 2. So as you can see, in this case, factoring the same, instead of completing a square is much simpler, right? Okay, so let's do the next one. It's pretty much the same thing. We're gonna do, instead of completing the square, we're gonna be factoring. So what should I do? I should bring the 5, 6 to the other side. So minus 5 over 6x plus 1 over 9 equals 0. So what is the LCD here? It's just 18, right? So we gotta multiply everything by 18x squared. Minus multiply this by 3, you get 15x. Multiply this by 2, you get 2, right? So now this one factors, but a bit tricky, right? So I can see that, okay, let's just factor. You got 6x times 3x minus 3. Nope, doesn't work that way. Also, there's a GCF, so that's why it doesn't work. Let's try this and this. Yep, it looks like it works. So now what? This one, we set this equal to 0, you get x equals 1/6. We set this equals 0, you get x equals 2/3. There you go. That's it. So you can see, seems like simpler by factoring, isn't it? Okay. Okay. So sometimes we can't factor, so what we can do is use quadratic formula this time. Or you can use completing square, but in this case I'm going to use quadratic formula. Quadratic formula. C x to the 4 minus 8x squared plus 8. So I can use completing square here also, but in this case this one doesn't actually factor, so we're going to use quadratic formula. So what I'm going to do to use quadratic formula, it should be the second power, right? Well, I don't want to say it has to be the second power, but in this case I'm going to use a substitution. Let u equals x squared, so it's in the form square. So u squared minus 8u plus 8 is equal to 0. Now we just have ax squared, plus bx plus c form. So now a is equal to 1, b is equal to negative 8, c is equal to 8. So just using the formula, you got to be careful. It's not x, it's u, right? So you have negative b, which is going to be 8 plus or minus b squared times 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So u is equal to 8 plus or minus, this is going to be 64 minus 32, which is just 32 all over 2. And we can simplify. So this is going to be what? I can obviously this is 8 plus or minus, what's here? 16, 32, 16 times 2. So we can factor out a 4 over 2 over 2. Now we can simplify, right? So let me just write it here. You have u is equal to, they're all divisible by 2, so that's just going to be 4 plus or minus 2 over root 2. But be careful, you didn't start with 2, you started with x squared, so it's x squared equals 4 plus or minus 2 root 2. Then x is equal to plus or minus, be careful, plus or minus 4 plus or minus 2 root 2. That's it. Okay. There you go. So we have practice problems. What? Already? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this was like kind of fast. Like you can go back to the video and redo them. Make sure you understand it, especially completing the square. Here. So basically, I'll tell you what method you should use, or what method you're gonna use to do the problem. Yes, you could do many different formulas for it, but in this case, I'm giving instruction to complete the square. So 3 over 10 x squared plus x plus 5 over 6. So in this case, we got to complete the square, right? Ooh, okay. So what should I do? First step, right? Subtract the 5 over 6. Then what? Factor out the coefficient out a, which is 3 out of 10, 3 over 10. Now we got to complete the square. So since I factored 10 over 3, so it's going to be 10x over 3, right? Now we got to complete the square. We take half of this, which is what? 5 over 3, and then square it. So that's 25 over 9. Okay, then be careful. I didn't add 25 over 9. I added 3 over 10 times 25 over 9. There's two ways to do this. You can simplify 3 over 9 is, this will be 3, and 25 over 10. This is 2 times 3 is 6, and that's just 5 on the top, but probably didn't make any sense what I said. But so what you can do is just multiply. 3 times 25 is 75, then 10 times 9 is 90, so this is really 75 over 90. But you notice you can reduce this by 15, so this is really just 5 over 6. What do you know? It's the same thing. Whoa. Okay, 3 over 10, you have x plus, just half of this is 5 over 3 squared equals 0, and then I divide by 10 over 3. Right? Then I get still 0, and then I take the square root of this, I still get 0, so it's just negative 5 over 3. Okay? That's it. Okay, so we did that by completing the square. Now we're gonna apply the same thing, but this time, second problem is by factoring, So by factoring. So let's do that. So in order to factor, it's much easier. We'll get rid of the fraction, right? So let's see what's the LCD. That looks like 30. So multiply everything by 30. So this would be 9x squared plus 30x plus multiply this by 5. You get 25 equals 0. This is now looks like a perfect square. So we take this is 3x plus 5 squared. Is it? Yes, it is, right? So this is equal to 0. And you take the square root of both sides, you get 3x plus 5. Still going to be 0, and then x equals negative 5 over 3. So you notice, you get the same result, and you should get the same result. And it looks much simpler, right? Okay. So let's, ooh, shouldn't have erased it. No! Okay, so we're going to use quadratic formula this time, quadratic formula. So we have 3 over 10x squared plus x plus 5 over 6 equals 0. So quadratic formula, oh, not fun, but we'll just do it. Gotta do it, so let's do it. So in this case, a is equal to 3 over 10, b is equal to 1, c is equal to 5 over 6, right? So using that formula, x equals negative b, so negative 1 plus or minus b squared for ac, which is 3 over 10 times 5 over 6 all over 2 times a, which is 3 over 10. So x equals negative 1 plus or minus 1. As you notice here, 1 minus, you can definitely simplify, but sometimes it's easier just multiply things out. In this case, so you get 12 times 5, which is 60, 10 times 6 is 60, this is just 1. So this is just 1 over, simplify this is going to be 3 over 5. This is x equals negative 1 plus or minus 0 over 3 over 5. This is just really x equals negative 5 over 3, and we should get the same result, right? Yep. So this time we're gonna do next question by factoring. Solve by factoring. Okay? So I should say solve to be more correct. Okay? Everything I've been doing is factoring, but we are solving. So solve by factoring. So x to the 4 plus 3x squared plus 2 is equal to 0. Okay, so let's try it out. Pause the video if you have to. Also, this is practice problems. If you tried it yourself and you didn't do it correctly, make sure you go back to the video and see what you did wrong. Okay. So let's do this by factoring. So pause the video if you haven't tried it. So what is this? You have x squared plus 1, x squared plus 2, right? Now what? Just set both sides to equal to 0. Now you got x squared equals negative 1, x squared equals negative 2. This is going to be x equals plus or minus I, x equals root 2i plus or minus. Make sure that the I is not inside the square root. That's it. So we're going to do the same thing, but this case, we're going to use quadratic formula. Quadratic formula. So this case, this is number 5, quadratic formula. Okay, so try it out. I went a little faster than I was expecting. I got a little bit too fast. Okay. So in this case, I usually try to make my videos about 30 minutes long. Right now it's about 21 minutes, and yeah, I don't think we're gonna finish in 30 minutes. I'm probably gonna finish less than time with that. So let's do it. So we have so I'm gonna let u be what? You don't have to do this step, but it's just so, you know, I do it anyway so you can see the steps. So u squared plus 3u plus 2, 0. And then what? A is equal to 1, b is equal to 3, c is equal to 2. And you notice it doesn't change our a, b, and c is, but now we have it in u square form because that's the quadratic formula. It's square. So just using the quadratic formula, you have u this time, then you have -3 plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So u is equal to -3 plus or minus, this is 9 minus 8 is 1 all over 2. So in this case, I don't know why I do that. It's equal to u, right? -3 plus 1 over 2. So what is that? -3 plus 1 over 2, which is going to be -1. Then you have u is equal to -3 minus 1 over 2. That's going to be -2, but be careful. We have to go back to our original equation, which is x squared. This is -2. This is x equals plus or minus I. X equals plus or minus root 2i. And you see, using quadratic formula, we get the same result. Okay. That's it. Okay, now next problem. This looks like the last problem, so this time use any method to solve for x. Okay, use any method. The other ones I gave you instruction on what to do. In this case, I'm asking you can use any method. So you have x4 plus 2 is equal to x times 2x squared plus 1. You're wondering what this letter is? That's D. It looks like an alpha, but that's D. So it looks like an alpha. Okay, there you go. So try it out, pause the video. Yeah, we're at 23 minutes right now. Looks like today's gonna be a short day. Okay, class will end early today, guys. Okay, so what should I do? If you say we used the quadratic formula, raise your hand. If you use the convenience square, raise your hand. How about if you use factoring? Right? I actually use factoring, so let's do that. So x to the 4, we gotta combine like terms, but first of all, we gotta distribute. Right? Now we gotta set equal to 0. Now we got to factor by grouping. So how do I factor by grouping here? As you can see, if I look at that, it's not it seems a little obvious, right? Now we just want to combine like terms, and you can see it right here. If we do that, I can factor out an x here. This is x cubed minus 1. This one, if I factor out -2, you get x cubed minus 1. See that? Now what can we do? We can factor out x cubed minus 1. You have x minus 2 equals 0. Then I can factor this out. This is x minus 1. X squared plus x plus 1. This is going to be x minus 2 equals 0. Now this, I can set this equal to 0 and that equal to 0, so you have x equals 1. I'm just gonna write it down. So you can see x minus 1 equals 0, this is x equals 1, this one is x minus 2 is equal to 0, so x equals 2. So now I gotta set that equal to 0, so I'm gonna write it on the side. X squared plus x plus 1 is equal to 0. So what I can do here, I did factor here, but this case I have to use dot. I can't really factor, I can complete the square. So this is really x plus 1/2 square equals, then I gotta subtract 1 to the other side, but I added what here? I skipped that step. Let me just do that. Yeah, let's just do it. We have time. So we have x squared plus x and is equal to -1. So what I have to do here? I gotta what? Take half of this and square it, so I get 1/4, right? Then I gotta do the same thing here. I gotta add 1/4. So this is gonna be x plus 1 over 2 squared is equal to -3 over 4. Then when you take the square root of both sides, you get x plus 1 over 2 equals plus or minus √3 I over 2. I just gotta combine like terms. You have x equals -2 plus or minus √3 over 2i. Hopefully you can see my writing, but that's how it is. That's the answer. There you go, guys. So I don't have any homework for this class. I might have give some homework in the future, but right now really just go over the video and make sure you master it. And one way to really know how to do something really well is be able to teach somebody. Once you could teach it to someone, you really know how to do it. There you go.